Where stately oaks and broad magnolias shade inspiring halls, there stands our dear old alma mater, LSU. Unfortunately, surrounding those oaks and magnolias are buildings that are in much need of repairs. As simple as it seems to fix these maintenance issues, LSU cannot do so without the help of the state.
Traditionally, the state would give us the money to do those type of things. Unfortunately, they have not in a long time, so we have some definitely deferred maintenance issues across the campus, as do all of other higher education, public higher education in this state.
Deferred maintenance refers to on-campus buildings, both old and new, that require minor to major repairs or renovations, and these are placed on a backlog list. Since current funding isn't enough to put towards certain repairs, LSU looks towards receiving funding.
We go back to the list, which is prioritized by building and by critical need on a scale of 1 to 5, and we look for the ones that need to be addressed most urgently. And we will use funding to address that need.
However, since LSU is the biggest public university in Louisiana, they have the largest deferred maintenance list.
Golly, it's about $700 million that we're short of that.
As the campus slowly starts to deteriorate, LSU uses the operating budget to go through and do minor repairs. With that said, LSU does not have a lot of budget flexibility, so many buildings will end up being on the deferred maintenance list for years.
Engineering shops, also known as Art Studio. Unfortunately, that building has been on the capital outlay list probably 15 to 20 years.
And if there was a big catastrophe on campus, the operating budget could not keep up with repairs alone.
We would have to go to the state and ask for them to help us get through that, unfortunately.
Instead of waiting for the state's financial help, LSU could charge their students more through fees in order to support renovations.
We'd rather not. We would hope our state would fund us so we don't have to go up on students.
And so we're always looking for unique ways to find funding for new construction or major renovations.
LSU sends the state their priority deferred maintenance and capital outlay lists every year. This shows the state which buildings need replacements, and from there it is in the state's hands. From the Board of Regents to the governor's office, and then onto the state legislative process, concluding with the state governor's approval.
He has a line item veto that he can go in and veto things that he doesn't agree with, of which then the legislature could come back into session and try to override his veto. So it's a long process.
Unfortunately, in Louisiana at this time, there are limited resources. And with the way the Constitution is currently, there are statutory funds that leave pots of money within the state uncuttable, except for the Department of Health and Hospitals, and of course, higher education. But where does that leave LSU?
In my opinion, maybe 3 options. You get some money from fundraising, which they typically don't give money for renovations of an old building. You go and ask the state for it. And the other possibility is you can pass a tuition and fee that would be dedicated for those.
Within the state's last session, they passed taxes that will enable more stabilization within the budget, so LSU will not be threatened with potential cuts.
We take the whole budget, all the money, and we try to allocate it. This year, I think there's like a 10% increase in money for colleges, and we go through each one of those and decide if we can. And normally, if we decide to increase money, we allow the college the latitude of using it how they want to use it.
Although funding has been cut in the past, it will be more stable for upcoming years.
We're not talking about cuts. Now, for higher ed, we would like to go back up to these. You know, we were funded at $281 million back from just state funds in 08-09, and right now we're $136.4 million. We would love to move back up to that number, and we could make some serious investments in faculty, building maintenance and those type of things, but it's going to take priority of the governor and the legislature to do that.
Unfortunately, there is not a simplified answer to why state funding towards LSU has been cut down, but roughly speaking, natural disasters have played a major role.
You know, we're economically, you're aware, we still haven't gotten back with solid ground. I mean, we're better now than we were, but as far as money and taxes being brought in, that sort of thing, but we're still not where we ought to be, and certainly I'm a huge supporter of the education system because I'm a product of that.
Once funding becomes more available, students and faculty can expect to see historic buildings being renovated while keeping the exterior integrity. With the incoming legislative session just beginning, no higher education funding has been finalized at this time. As funding decisions are made, LSU will be notified directly, but there is no saying how long until LSU will be able to update buildings from the deferred maintenance list. For Tiger TV, I'm Alexia Tsiropoulos.